have a fabulous session coming up. I've just been chatting to Colin I'Anson, who is a HPE Fellow. Now, what I discovered, do you know how many HPE Fellows there are in Europe? Give you a hint. You're going to meet half of them. There's only 2. And in the world, there's 14 of these individuals. They are individual contributors. They are thought leaders within the HPE organization. We are privileged to have Colin speak to us today. He's going to be talking about something that's critical for our success, and that is how to remain relevant to our customers of tomorrow and their changing interests, their changing preferences in the way they buy, what they consume, how they consume it. He's going to be telling us all about HPE's beliefs and strategies to align and remain relevant to customers of tomorrow. Please help me welcome to the stage Mr. Colin I'Anson, HPE Fellow. Colin.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to talk to you about what it means to be relevant in the digital ecosystem, both in terms of technology and also in terms of how the go-to-market works. Because if you think as a service provider, it's how you go to market, how you deliver to your customers that really matters and how you work with them. It's absolutely critical, and it's just as important as the technology that you use as your foundation. And I'm going to use us as an example. We live in a world today where all the things around us have got computation inside them. And we're seeing technology in everything we touch, everything we do, at various levels. And slowly, very slowly, it's becoming connected. And in particular, as people, through social media and everything else, we're becoming very, very connected. And in time, we're going to be able to analyze and think about this so that we can start to understand what this all means. We're starting to collect data. We're starting to collect an understanding of what is happening around us from the things that we do in the virtual world as they impact our day-to-day lives. And we're sitting there at a time now where there are 2 things going on. One, there is just this enormous growth in applications. You've got your phone full of apps. You've probably got your phone over full of apps, if it's anything like mine. And there is data absolutely everywhere. But the question is how we're going to extract value out of that and how we can start to be relevant as the individual companies we are, as a service provider, as a provider of IT equipment, to every person that we work with as our customers. And so there is just huge volumes of stuff out there to be understood to extract value from. But I'd like to give you an example. This is Levi's Stadium, San Francisco 49ers play there. And we've provided wireless connectivity throughout the entire stadium. And this changes the experience of a fan from the moment they arrive in the car park to the moment they go home, in fact, even after they go home. Because by being able to guide the enormous number of football fans, American football fans that is, to their seats, get them to their seats, having a happy experience, and then we deliver the most important service that there is in the San Francisco 49ers stadium. Do you know what that is? Correct! I heard that I heard that voice. I paid for that. I'm sure I paid for that. Beer as a service. Yep. Beer brought to you at your seat and delivered to you. Second most important service, by the way, to somebody sitting at their seat is the ability to find the shortest queue in whatever the food outlets might be. The third most important service is related to the first and second. It is a consequence of the first and is the shortest queue, as in the second. I leave the rest to your imagination as the third most important service out there. But also what happens for the fan that is sitting there, they can order merchandise. It can be brought to them at their seat. They order more. They have a better day out. They enjoy themselves. And do you know what happens? Because they enjoy themselves, they spend more money. And the 49ers at Levi's Stadium can actually show what is happening as a consequence of that. So by changing the customer's experience, San Francisco 49ers, the Levi's Stadium, become more important to the people that's there. They're transforming their relevance to the people. Not that anybody knew because they just had a good day out, but they transformed that relevance. And one of the key pieces of how you transform that relevance is understanding what you're working with. And one of the things they have is the ability to see data and to see actually what's happening. And this quote from the Harvard Business Review that you'll see here is just a key reminder of what is really going on. Every industry will soon be driven by digitization, and every winning company will be using algorithms or mathematical rules for processing information to shape the end-to-end customer experience. And you'll have heard from the world of industrial IoT, Jeff Imlek of GE Digital talking about the same thing. But data, in other words, the understanding of what is going on, is what is transforming the experience in the world for every single person today. And if we can start to master that, as service providers providing that content, as IT companies enabling that process to work, we change the experience of those people out there. So relevance becomes something that is very important. Relevance in this digital ecosystem is that everybody knows what your special role is going to be. What's so special about you? Why do people care about you that's out there? Now, in our case, I'll use us as the example. We talk about ourselves as the digital foundation, the thing that everything stands on top of. Think about it. If your digital foundation fails and you're running a digital business, do you have a digital business? No, you don't. If Uber's IT broke down, does Uber have a taxi business? No, it doesn't. So that infrastructure becomes incredibly important. My role in this world is to make sure that every business that we deliver to, and particularly through service providers, is to make sure that we are making that happen. And our focus is really for those customers, everybody we work with, to make sure that the digital projects actually prosper, that they grow, that they work well, but to be part of the process, part of the ecosystem. Part of the ecosystem, perhaps HPE delivering through a service provider onto the end customer. But making those projects prosper, we are very relevant. That's good in a business sense, but you have to answer the same question, so what, in the technical sense. And as a company, we're investing very heavily in what we do today. As you'll be very aware, we're going through enormous changes as a company, getting incredibly focused on delivering the IT that is needed. And in that IT, what we deliver is the right hosting, how we work with agile developers, how we work with the idea of processing at the edge, and what is going on in computer architectures, which is probably the most scary piece, and I will come to that a little bit later. But technical relevance is really about how you deliver something that's efficient, high-performant, agile, trusted, continuously, advancing year by year, that you're not just a flash in the pan, you're not just this year's smart technology, but year upon year you consistently invest. By becoming a much more focused company, we're actually able to put our eyes on that and make sure that we generate value around how this works. So let's talk about each one of those four a moment. Let's talk first of all about right hosting for a digital business. Right hosting means that for a digital business, they need to know where they're going to go and get that hosting from. They may choose in their own mind to do things at home to start with, but then realize doing things at home is too hard, and they may even flip to the other end. They'll go straight to a public cloud. But they'll realize as they scale that sometimes this is not the right answer for them. But by the time they've scaled, they now need a real managed environment. And whether they pull that back into their own private cloud, whether they pull that into a managed private cloud, that is going to be their decision. But this is where, as a service provider, obviously there is a great business for managing those private clouds, whether it be in the hosting providers' facilities or whether it be on customer premise. And certainly the whole idea of what happens in customer premise is very important as we go through how a managed service company helps a customer on site. Why is that important? Because many clients at the present moment that we meet, it's the line of business who are spending their money. It is not the IT guys who are spending the money. It's line of business. Line of business want it working. They want their business up and running. They don't particularly care about the fine details of how it was built or anything else, as long as it is absolutely reliable and trustworthy. They will go to a service provider, they will come to us, because they can get trust from us, and they know what they're going to get. So as a company, the first piece in our technical relevance is to say, in each part of this spectrum, from what we have to do in traditional IT, through the worlds of cloud, managed private clouds, into public clouds. We participate in all of those places, and in particular, help people work across those worlds to make sure a workload ends up in the right hosting, not in the wrong hosting, the right place for that particular workload to be. The second thing we do, and this is where the great advantages of more focused companies, we can really push our investment forward, our investment cycles. We can really start to think about what is needed. And what we have is the idea of a composable infrastructure. So today, if you're working in IT, you write some code and everything else. Well, when you finally want to deploy it, you've got to negotiate with IT about what type of server, what performance and everything else you need. Actually, you really don't know most of the time for most workloads if it's going to be the right size or not. So you have scaling issues and challenges ahead of you. The idea of composable infrastructure is to give you that chance to have just that simple one line of code that allows you to say, I want this amount of compute, I want this amount of storage, write the line of code, commit it, and away you go, and that is what appears. Take away the long discussions and a thing of, well, we have a medium-sized T-shirt VM and a large-sized one, and you want this amount of storage attached to it. Well, my catalog doesn't have that one. The idea is to really keep it very clear. So what we work from is the whole idea of a composable infrastructure, standard user interface for the application programmer to come to. There are then pools of resources that sit down at the bottom. They can then, using the software-defined intelligence, pool from those resources whatever is required. So we're not talking about it buying it by the server chunk load. We're talking about the application developer speccing what they need. And then we actually deliver that through something you say, well, it looks just like all I've ever seen in a data center ever before. But this is radically different. What there is a composable frame that sits in the middle. And into that composable frame, you can put in compute of varying sizes and various capabilities, and you can put into it the storage you need of the type you need. You put them in, you plug them into the frame. It's the same frame each time. You can plug in also the fabric, the ability and the networking to connect the thing together, and then you plug in the magic. And the magic comes in the thing called a composer. The composer is what the application developer, or if necessary, the IT people who would write the line of code, but they say, this is what I want, and that will then figure out from the resource pools exactly what is needed. Synergy is a very major step forward in how you understand compute today. You've gone through the idea of rack-based servers. You've gone through the idea of blade-based servers. This is carrying it to a next generation. It's something we deliver, and on our stand down the bottom, you can actually see that running at the present moment, or so you can see one on our stand at the present time. So that's the first piece, composable infrastructure, a whole new category, but actually does the job of things that you already know and use, so it's ready to take on the workloads and challenges of the things you use. The second key strategic area of investment is, especially in a world with large amounts of data, is the ability to be able to take the compute to the edge. The ability to be able to take the processing and put it right down where the data appears. So instead of having to ship huge amounts of data back into the data centers and get it all back there and wonder why you've got so much, do the sums at the edge, extract the value at the edge, and you will then immediately know what to do. So not only do you learn what to do, but you can actually now start to get insights that go back in direction. So data flows in one direction, and control or insights flow in the other direction. So people can quickly work out what is happening. How can I give you an example? For example, if you're in a production facility, you have this type of capability to do the analysis at the edge, to understand what's happening. Simple visualization may help you to make your decisions at that moment. What am I doing? Why am I being there? What actually do I need to change in this manufacturing process? What is actually going to happen? So real, new innovation. Again, we can show you that on our stand. But the real thing we want to talk to you about is the fact it's not just what we can do now, it's the problems we're about to face as an industry. And those problems that we face as an industry are absolutely daunting. Everybody has asked the question, when does Moore's law fail? Well, here's my little charts. Data growth on the left-hand side is going up at about the same rate that Moore's law allows you to improve at. So data is growing at a colossal rate. Yep, that's okay. The problem is the chart on the right. The chart on the right shows that we are beginning to plateau in terms of compute performance. Not necessarily in storage, but in the compute performance itself. And as that starts to plateau, we're going to start to see the cost of our IT increasing. We're going to start to see the great advantages we've experienced for all of our working lives from Moore's law beginning to fade away. It's not going to fall off a cliff. I'm not going to project doom at this moment, but it begins to slow. Those charts very clearly start to show how. The key one is the one at the bottom, the fact that the number of cores is beginning to decrease in rate. So we're reaching the limits of what our technology will give us. And yeah, there's probably another 1.5, 2 generations of silicon still to come. Intel will carefully argue those numbers to you at any point. But there comes to be the end of a road that you reach for compute. So you've got to do something about that, because if you don't do something about it, there are terrifying consequences. Those terrifying consequences could be, if you've got to process twice the amount of data in 2 years' time, you need twice the number of data centers that you have at the present moment. Now, for those of us who are service providers and IT companies, we might think that's a good idea, but it's socially not a good idea at all. Because if you look at the amount of power consumed by IT in the world at the present moment, well, I'll give you a chance to have a guess. Is a country in the world? You're going to have to pick your own country. If you've heard my pitch before, you'll know the answer as well. But country in the world. What country in the world equals the amount of power that's consumed in IT at the moment? Germany. Oh, I don't know the German numbers. It's the UK, so it's in the same sort of order, but it's a major European country size. Twice that power in 2 years' time to Germany's 2 UKs. We become an antisocial industry. So unless we can actually solve that problem, we will end up, and I'm British, so I'm used to the people in the UK who we look down on are estate agents and bankers. And I'm sure for your country, you will have your own collection that you look down upon, but bankers are definitely not there, and estate agents are even worse. I'm sorry if I've insulted anybody here or their partners, but that is the words that are around. So unless as an IT industry, we can do something. And as a company, we're in the middle of 5 years of investing. This is half time. We are at the stage now where we are willing to turn around and say that we have got the fundamental building blocks running of a radical new compute infrastructure. Your entire working life, you've used a processor-centric architecture. We're introducing a memory-centric architecture. I will show you in technical terms just how large the effect of that is. One of the first things it requires of you is that you look at your IT in a different way. I started with the world of composable infrastructure. I talked about that. That is going to be the first step on the road. IT is going to be very, very different to what you're used to today. We announced back in November, we actually managed to fire the thing up, Linux operating system back in October. We announced it in London at the end of November, at the beginning of December. So, what is this thing and what does it look like? Well, boards are always easier to explain what's going on. So, wrong side. So, first of all, there is fast, persistent memory. We've invested in persistent memory, Intel have invested in persistent memory, SanDisk has invested in it. But the idea of this fast, persistent memory is it is near DRAM speed as we can get. So it runs. It is absolutely massive in scale, way beyond anything we've ever seen, and you'll see in a moment when I describe it just how it works. All that memory is connected through that high-speed fabric through to task-specific processing. So instead of general-purpose processing, CPUs, we can use general-purpose ones, and we can use ones that are specific to the task. There is no waste caused as a result of that. But then the most amazing thing starts to happen. Every processor can touch every piece of memory at roughly DRAM speed. So all that networking in all of your scale out that gets in the way, all the things that you get in trouble with, shuffling stuff from one place to another, you don't need anymore. The network inside the data center isn't there. It has vanished. It's all around the outside. TCP/IP does not go away. It remains. That's how you connect to all the other things. But you take away the inefficiency. In fact, if you look at it, just in moving data around, there is a factor of at least 10, sometimes at least 20, in the efficiency of moving data. By doing it, everything in memory, so that memory that's sitting there on the left, does the equivalent of your DRAM equivalent and also your long-term persistent memory that you call disk. Yeah, we ain't going to get that running next week. This is a program that we are building and working to, but we are getting results. We can now start to build this up. We're currently building a 40-node system, and we're starting now to see how those results work. So I'm going to expose to you a set of results to give you ideas of what this starts to mean. Top left-hand corner. The top left-hand corner is a face search. You've seen them, especially on American television programs. They say, there's our suspect. We've just seen him walk through. Or, that's the suspect. And suddenly you see the detectives all stand there and they see the frame up around the head. They press a button, and suddenly there's this flashing of lots of heads. And about 5 seconds later, they have the name of that person. We can speed that type of search up, or you can see there is approximately a 400 times speed up in that algorithm. We can actually get the speed of that search down to 1 frame rate. So in other words, the time it takes to refresh your television screen, we can get that sped up that amount. That's starting to answer, in terms of speed, problems you can't answer at the present moment. Spark, another example. This is actually Spark running off one of our Superdome platforms using the fact that we have reworked a lot of the algorithms to work in a memory-driven environment rather than just in a scale-out type of environment. We're starting to see results 20 times faster in that type of environment and well above those type of rates. That time and speed up means in speed to answers, you are not having to buy loads of scale-out hardware. You're getting rid of efficiencies. Remember those data centers and how they could have got out of control? You are not getting caught into it. The top right is, of course, the one that you all know very well, which is a graph search, but you all know it as the my airplane has landed early problem. Your airplane lands early. The captain comes on and says, I'm a wonderful pilot. I've got you here 20 minutes early, and I'll get you all on the way to your destination. We've just got to taxi up to the gate and get you off. And the plane stops. And you stay stationary for about 5 minutes, and you're thinking, well, we're early, it doesn't matter. You stay stationary for another 5 minutes, and you're thinking, come on, get me off this plane. And the captain comes on and says, well, I'm very sorry. There's another plane stuck on my gate. I can't get you in. And you look out the window and you say, excuse me, somebody tell the captain there's an empty gate just over there, please. Please, take us onto that one, get me off. Unfortunately, the graph search problem that sits behind that to rearrange the logistics just don't allow that to work because chaos breaks out afterwards in the schedules afterwards. You can't do it. If you can speed up, and you can see this particular example is 128 times faster, you can make a radical difference. The bottom right's my favorite. I stood in front of a banker in the City of London, and he said, well, my big problem is just how well I can do Monte Carlo simulations. And he said, for most of my futures forecasting, I have to use an approximation method. I lose money because the approximation method's not very good. Monte Carlo is really good, and that's what I prefer to be. We can show our approach can speed up over 8,000 times. The banker's comment was, well, you got me. I now have to buy, because 8,000 times faster predictions makes a radical difference. In Formula One, exactly the same would apply. If people like Mercedes could actually predict what's going on that much faster, they could work out so many of the different scenarios of what to do in a race. They are compute limited in what they do. A radical change that a new computer architecture is going to build, and that computer architecture comes from our technology. So I've shown that we have the foundations that sit inside our world. But I've got to talk about then how we apply this as a business. You know this whole story about what we do. and what our role is and how we work with the other people, I've talked about my role, which is the IT that's needed and the digital foundation. What's yours? And yours comes out of the old idea of value disciplines that comes from Harvard Business Review, or in the new language, the ideas of customer experience, in new operational process and new business models. And what we're doing is really bringing about the idea of being an ecosystem integrator is how to do this. Because the ecosystem integrator is going to lead us to that world of digital transformation through ecosystem understanding, finding viable options, transforming, refining the partners, and bringing their special value. And that's what we do. We guide that ecosystem journey. Now, that's what my role is. I'm going to ask you in a minute, what's your role going to be? But I want to get some of our customers to come and actually talk about that. And I do hope, when I press the button, the video will now appear. The video.
Your customers are demanding cloud and IT as a service. They need to get lean and mean, and if you're going to help them get there, you need to be lean and mean too. So how do you do more with less? You need to drive greater efficiency, which means you need more business flexibility to get what you need, when and where you need it. In other words, you need the same flexibility you offer your own customers. And you get it with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. HPE's service provider-ready flexible business models are built on tailored support and services, so you get the support you need while preserving capital to fuel your growth. Service Provider Growth Suite offers broad investment solutions and programs, like accelerated migration to convert your existing equipment to a flexible usage model, and pre-provisioning to quickly deploy technology and turn it on just when it's needed. Flexible capacity lets you scale capacity up or down based on your needs, pay for actual metered usage, and align your expenses to revenues. Data Center Care for Hyperscale provides tailored support for your IT environment, geared specifically for the web-scale operating model. HPE Spares Management Service puts the right part in your hands at the right time, with real-time inventory management and a global supply chain covering 170 countries. Data Privacy Services enables you to securely remove customer data from equipment before you retire or recycle it, so you stay compliant with regulations. HPE Modular Data Center offers an instant prefabricated physical data center on demand. The data center can arrive pre-configured with customer-specified servers, storage, and network. With consulting services bundled in, you have everything needed to plan, provision, and launch your fully operational data center in just weeks. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise understands the challenges service providers face. We created service provider-ready flexible business models to increase your agility and maximize your profitability. Our approach empowers you to build a stronger business your way, so you can be ready for anything.
That's what we do. And that's what we try to support our particular customers in what they're doing. So I'm going to really ask some questions here, which is, I know my role, and I'm going to talk about how my role works towards you in a second. But it's really, how do you, service providers, work with the other members of the ecosystem? What do you do in your world to make that happen? We as a company make a very serious investment every year in our service provider community, in our partners. Actually, in enablement, we spend over $1 billion a year in supporting you guys. That is far more than anybody else is putting into this world. Far, far more. $1 billion a year, please note. By doing that, we help our ecosystem partners to succeed. We help our ecosystem partners because we are already working as an ecosystem integrator. Our Cloud 28 Plus program allows us to work and help you produce demand for your services and your capabilities because you can advertise them. We make them available, you can tell the world about them. You can find other people. Customers can come and provide you. So we're enabling, we're helping, We're helping to grow your business. We're laying the IT foundations. But the real challenge of everything I'm talking about today is, what's your role? As a service provider, what makes you special in the eyes of your customers? What is the thing that they're going to remember about you when they're having that sort of intuitive moment that makes them say, I will go to, and I'm not going to name anyone in case I offend everybody else in the room, I will go to X, because you need to be special in this world. This is a very challenging world we live in, especially with large amounts of data, data that's not being used, data that's not being wasted. You've got to show what you do that's so special about you. So it's assembling of the partners. Yep, we do that. That's why we have our Service Provider Ready Partner program. And we know their special value, but you've got to grow that value, and you've got to focus that. So we have a booth downstairs, somewhere in the middle of the rectangular hall. There's an opportunity for you to come and actually see us. So guys, please do, come and see us. Thank you for your time.